Weirs are because, as I said, they are not a dam, but they do control the flow of the river. So, pag linagyan mo ng weir, adjustable yun eh, kung paano mo ibababa, paano mo itataas. Actually, hindi. It's not up and down. May butas. So, may butas na bubuksan mo, sasara mo. Oo. Well, it's like it adjusts to the conditions. But I don't see even one single weir here. I think in Wawa Dam they're going to put, because I talked to Ricky Razon about it. Why do we not put weirs for us a flood control?
Things that we probably will have to do, Mr. President. Yes, the weirs are very effective in slowing down actually the flow. The flow of the flood waters actually coming down, actually, especially in the steep areas.
It's usually used, for example, if there is a fishing ground, para magkaroon ng lake, ng maliit, para meron pala sidaan. Oo. But kontrolado niya yung tubig. Pagbaha, isasara mo lahat. Mag-aano siya. Pero magre-release ka para hindi mag-overflow, para hindi out of control. And it's everywhere else that I see, I've seen it in many places. And it seems to be very effective. It's an old, ancient technology. I don't know why we don't use weirs. We should incorporate that into our designs para ko sa flood control. Pag-aralan nga natin, sino pa ang pinakamagaling na gumamit ng weir? Mga European, for the last millennium, they've been using weirs already. Alam na nila yan. Maybe the Dutch will know because sila ang pinakamagaling sa water management. I've seen it in every country in Europe. I've seen it in Germany, I've seen it in England, I've seen it in France, I've seen it everywhere. And it seems to calm the waters down. Kahit mataas, mabilis ang pasok. Dito pwede, dito sa baba, downstream of the weir. Talagang kontrolado yung flow na hindi maging flash flood. Yeah, weirs. Let's really look into that properly, the technology, how to use it, because I know it's effective.
Adaptable solution.
Very adaptable sa atin yan. And because I bring it up because of what I saw in the video, where mabilis ng tubig. Kung hindi ganun kabilis yung tubig, it wouldn't, then yung fatalities natin, first, baka yung ilan doon hindi na nalunod.
Sabodam kasi, Mr. President, ngayon yung mga sabodam yung nilalagay.
Imbes,
yes.
Which is okay. Sabodam is okay, but
downstream, we still have to put the weirs.
Kasi pag mag-release ang dam dahil mag-overflow na, pagbaba ng tubig, dahan-dahan ang pagpasok.
Yes.
Hindi yung biglaan. So that's something that I'm quite surprised considering the problems that we have with flood control. This is a technique that is very effective when it comes to flood control. All right, okay. Now, what do you have more on the? Wait, tapos na ba tayo with the governor's report?
Earlier we had problems for quite some time with some housing issues, but as of this morning, it has already been addressed by NHA. So we already got to talk to NHA, and it will be addressed.
All right, so let's move to DNR because I think you have something to present.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will request Undersecretary Carlos David to make this presentation. This is analysis that was done based on satellite imagery and some of the ground truthing that was done to verify. So this is a very quick but intensive analysis of the flood dynamics in the area, just for quick appreciation.
Good morning, Mr. President and everybody. We wanted to offer a different strategy for flood mitigation, not only for Marikina and Rizal, but for the rest of the country. I think it has to be an integrated approach, combining structural controls, which includes the DPWH infrastructure that we are planning, the ecological integrity of our watersheds, which sometimes is left behind as our primary flood control mitigation strategy, and as well as community planning. As you will see in Rizal and in Marikina, community planning is essential as well in terms of flood control. Next slide, please. I just wanted to show this slide. We often look at the flooding as an issue of the Upper Marikina watershed, which is the one in pink, and that covers 26,100 hectares. Note, however, that the whole catchment of the Marikina River is 69,000 hectares. And majority, 60% of the area, is outside of the Upper Marikina protected area. The 43,700 covers Rodriguez, San Mateo, Cainta, Antipolo, all the way down to Marikina. And if we only focus our efforts in the 26,100, then I don't think we will solve the flooding downstream. And therefore, the cooperation of the LGUs within the 43,700, mostly Rizal, is crucial, no, in mitigating the floods. Next slide. The urban sprawl, which is in red, has increased. Obviously, for Marikina, Quezon City, Pasig, and all the way down, this is already very dense housing. And we are seeing urbanization as well, no, as the LGUs upstream also develop. This contributes to flooding simply because the amount of rainfall that falls in the area will no longer infiltrate the ground, but is converted into floodwaters or runoff when everything is now paved. And therefore, in terms of land use planning, there are small interventions that we can do in order for us to have our surface still permeable, even if it is still urbanized. No? So these are some of the strategies that we can take with LGU of Rizal. Next slide. For the Upper Marikina watershed, like Tony mentioned, our plan, quite bold, is to plant 3 million trees in the next 4 years. And this will significantly increase our forest cover in the Upper Marikina watershed. The budget that we require for this is 160 million, but with our partnerships with DPWH and the private sector and the LGUs of within Rizal, I think the budget will be much smaller, and we can do this much faster than 4 years. Next slide. This is the typical situation in the Upper Marikina watershed. By far, the biggest conversion of our forest land is not because of deforestation, but because of conversion into agricultural areas. Plantations, mango plantations, and also rice paddies. And you will see in this picture here, there is still some intact forest on the right side, but you now see encroachment of rice paddies on the left side, and also conversion of that forest land to mango plantations on the upper right-hand corner. This is a tricky situation because obviously our communities require a viable livelihood in the area, and this is the reason why they're converting the land. But in the process, we are losing our forest cover, which contributes to increased runoff and flooding downstream. Next slide. I'll skip this slide. Next slide, please. Our efforts are reforestation. Next slide, please. We have targeted where we need to reforest, and these are targeted areas that will maximize the forest cover that we have. Next slide, please. We want to do a lot more work with the DPWH in terms of river restoration and promotion of water impoundment structures. Now, this is a picture of the Upper Wawa Dam on September 4, 2024. no, it does contribute a lot in terms of holding back floodwaters that will, in the past, would go down San Mateo and Marikina. And I believe that there are projects already in the pipeline to include more impoundment structures above this and also below. I think the old Wawa Dam, although it is small, if we dredge it and increase its height, will still contribute, to mitigating floods downstream. Next slide. This is in San Mateo, Rizal, and you can see the urban sprawl already encroaching upon both banks of the Marikina River. Previously, before these dwellings were there, the river was allowed to spread out. It spreads out. But now, because we have these structures, we will have to protect the houses there. There are dikes on both sides. What happens is that the water that's coming from upstream is now constricted onto the river itself. And the net effect of that is that it increases the velocity of the water in the river because you constrict it. It's like pinching your garden hose, essentially, and not allowing it to spread out. And the entire volume of the water that's coming down from upstream no longer spreads upstream, but is now directed its full force downstream. And therefore, this contributes to faster floods and bigger volume floods in downstream communities. Next slide. Finally, there's some work to be done by the DNR as well. What you're seeing here, those brown patches there, are in the Upper Marikina Watershed. These are kaingin that's happening in the Upper Marikina Watershed. And this is the first step towards its conversion into agricultural lands. And so the monitoring, surveillance, and enforcement arm of the DNR has to be intensified. Now they have to be more proactive, using more new technologies in order for us to curb these kinds of activities. Finally, next slide. This is a diagram that was drawn by one of our land use planners, architect Paulo Alcazaren, and it simply illustrates what has happened in the past 20, 30 years. In the past, we had the environment intact, and therefore the amount of rain, even with extreme rain events, will not necessarily go down to the communities because they are held back and they infiltrate into the ground. Fast forward to today, we have built up many of these areas already, and the infiltration of rainfall does not happen as much anymore, and everything is converted into flooding. So proper land use planning, restoration of our ecological integrity, and the combination of structures that DPWH has planned will, I think, solve the flooding issues in the area. Maraming salamat po.
If I may, just to say that our collaboration and cooperation with the province and the different municipalities all the way down to the barangay level is actually ongoing already. It has been going on for some time. And we have also signed with the DPWH an MOA on targeted tree planting in the flood control investments that the DPWH is making, so that we can actually pool our resources in order to achieve the impacts that we want. So our cooperation with the local governments plus the different departments is actually ongoing already. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. So these are the conditions that we have to deal with. If you look at this drawing, population 300,000. Nasa 12 million na tayo ngayon. So you can see the enormous difference of what the terrain is having to deal with. Whereas there was forest cover on the uphill areas, that's all gone because tinayo na ng bahay. So we will, it's not as if you can send the people away. We have to adjust around the population. All right, thank you for the quick overview from DNR. Now we move to the briefing from the DILG. You will brief us on Indonesia, or you will brief us on... you can do both, actually. Alright, unahin na natin yung bagyo. Okay, DILG, please.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. President and the Cabinet and the officials of Rizal. Sir, mamaya na yun sa Jakarta. Okay. Well, nasabi na po lahat ni Governor Richie. It's just that as per our list, there are 5,973 families or 10,888 individuals that are still in 112 evacuation centers as of 6 a.m. this morning. And we've got the hardest hit. The hardest hit are, as compiled, is Morong, Teresa, Cainta, Rodriguez, and San Mateo, sir. No. So, I think this is also in conformity with the list. No, it's harmonious with the list of the LGU, sir. So we compiled this, and I would say that all of the local chief executives really exerted their efforts. 100% are all present in the area of responsibility in the province of Rizal. And they're there during the typhoon, all of them, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Especially this chart, you have, of course, I assume, am I correct in assuming that the DSWD has that, so that you can properly respond to itong needs?
Yes, Mr. President. Actually, the next slide, pag time ko na, we can go through the...
Sige, let's do that. All right, let's go to the DSWD's responses.
Mr. President, as always, we focus on the family food packs. So next slide. Top line, Mr. President, from the last time we met 2 days ago, that time it was 133,000 released food packs. Now we're up to 265,104 nationwide, of which in Calabarzon, one of the hardest hit areas, 41,961. We are still processing another 200,000 as we speak. So, yung initial na nasabi ko sa inyo na I think it'll play at around 250 to 300. Hindi ho, it keeps on going up kasi there's still flooded areas, understandably. We'll probably close at around 500,000 family food packs for Enteng alone. Next slide. Mr. President, for region, for Calabarzon, we've released, as mentioned, 41,961,000 family food packs, of which a greater chunk went to Rizal, 28,100. That's spread across the different levels of government, some to the province, some to the municipalities. So we're already doing 28,100, and we're still processing requests as we speak right now, Mr. President. We have that list ni Secretary Abalos. We get it also from the OCD, the hardest hit areas, and we've been coordinating with the province and the congressional representatives as to where we need to deploy more family food packs.
Well, we can anticipate. We can anticipate already, I think, by now, what is going to be required for the effect to alleviate the condition from Enteng. So do we have that estimate more or less?
For Enteng, Mr. President.
Enteng.
Yes, Mr. President. For family food packs, 500,000, 500,000 nationwide. We're halfway through. Nag-slow down na ho yung pasok ng request. So we'll be able to process everything by end of this week. Lahat ho yun fully deployed na. Then we start stockpiling for the next 2 storms coming in.
Yeah, speaking of which, there is a threatening weather structure that is approaching the Philippines again, and so we have to. Hindi na nga, it's also almost impossible now for us to say what will Enteng cost us in terms of food packs, non-food items, etc. All of the assistances that we will give people who have been displaced, all of those things, because we don't know when Enteng we will. I don't think we will have finished doing the effects of trying to alleviate the effects of Enteng before this other storm comes in. And do we have well, maybe DNR can give us an indication. Do we have what is the possibility or what is the likelihood rather of this new weather structure? Do we have somebody from Pag-asa here?
DSWD.
Ayan. Oh, you're here. All right, I didn't see you. Sige, anong tinitingnan natin dito sa bagong papasok na sa PAR?
Good morning, Mr. President, sir, and to all cabinet secretaries present and to the local chief executives. Sir, as of the report of Pag-asa yesterday, the developing tropical cyclone are not yet cleared when it will be developed into a tropical cyclone, sir. Right now, they are looking into 3 possible tropical cyclones, but 2 of them are on the northern part of the country, while the third one is, I think it's in the eastern part of Visayas and Mindanao area. But according to Pag-asa, sir, this will be determined within the month of September. So they will be issuing forecast once they determine the accurate information about this possible tropical cyclone, sir.
Mr. President, if I may.
Yes, go please.
So
Secretary.
perhaps just to possibly also broaden the picture, because the tropical cyclones are one element, but the southwest monsoon is really another. And what happens, there are enhancements possible for the southwest monsoon, even if the tropical cyclone, it doesn't even enter our area of responsibility. So perhaps if we could have a larger forecast picture, because you can see the water vapor actually moving across towards us from the southwest monsoon. And so if we may suggest to DOST Pag-asa, they could give us a broader picture of what can be anticipated by way of rainfall from other systems rather than just the tropical cyclone.
Well, anyway, it's becoming more and more. Despite all of our new technologies and sources of data, it's actually still continuing to get harder and harder to forecast properly. Only because the one thing that at least I've noticed as a public administrator is that the typhoons develop much more quickly. Whereas before, it would take 3 days to develop into a major typhoon. Alala ko nung bata kami, siyempre inaasahan namin mag-typhoon number 2 para mawalang pasok. Di ba? Pero pag malapit na at typhoon number 1 pa lang, hindi na mag-typhoon 2 yan. Ngayon, malapit na, typhoon 1, typhoon signal number 1, within 24 hours, it's typhoon signal number 4. Yung unang nangyaring ganyan, yung Yolanda. Hindi natin akalain na ganun kalakas. Nung dumating, ang lakas-lakas pala. And then Odette, the same thing. Ito rin Karina. Lahat, iba hindi kagaya ng dati. Very predictable. O sige, alam na natin kung saan dadaan. Alam na natin kung sino yung mga probinsya. The standard pattern before was papasok ng Bicol, lalabas dun sa amin, sa Northern Luzon. Not anymore. Umurong na talaga. Pati Mindanao, binabagyo na. Okay. Anyway, so can you carry on with the sorry. Yeah.
That was my last slide. Tama ho kayo, hindi na natin malalaman yung ending ng enteng response sa incoming storms. But based on your last instructions, we're both doing the response and the stockpiling and the procuring all at the same time now. Sabay-sabay na sila.
Yeah, what the Secretary is referring to is because when after Karina, na ubos ang lahat ng ating stockpile. At the end of the Karina effort, response, walang laman yung warehouse namin. Naubos talaga. So we had to resupply ourselves para naman ito. Pero kung may parating pa, we have to again be ready. So mabuti naman yung mga private sector partners natin, they're very supportive sa ating mga ginagawa. At pag emergency, tinutulungan tayo kagad. So it's all right. We'll be all right. But this is how severe the problem is that all our planning and our modeling turns out that we have to do much more than what we expected, and it hits us harder than we expected because the volume of the water, sumabay ang habagat. The last one kanina sinabayan ng high tide, all of the elements that contributed to becoming a very serious problem. I hope the next one. Mukhang mas mahina naman yung so far. It is not a storm. Is it a storm already? Yung weather system na papasok nasa atin na ba? Is it already in our area of responsibility?
Not just, sir. It's only a cyclone formation only, sir.
How far away is it?
It's still outside of the...
How fast is it moving?
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Sige, we have to learn all of those things.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure you have the data. You just have to look it up. We have to learn all of those things para malaman natin when it will hit, at what strength, just to give us an idea of what we are going to have to face, so we can warn the local governments, we can warn households and tell them to evacuate or to or at least prepare themselves, so that we are continuing to provide whatever it is that they need. Yeah. Here in Rizal, specifically, do you have figures? How many people are still in? You know what? Ganito lang. Effects of Karina. Ilang pang tao na nasa evacuation center ngayon?
That part of the presentation is with the OCD kasi the other day na inulit namin.
Oh, okay. Let's go. Okay, let's do that. Ito, nationwide ito eh. Yeah.
Hello. As to the effects, sir, right now, there are already 565,659 families, sir, comprising 2.162 million persons affected. And these are, those staying inside evacuation centers are 14,900 families with 59,469 persons, while 3,567 families with 13,415 persons are outside evacuation centers.
All right. So we are of course still providing food packs and non-food items, but we're getting to the point kasi at some point dito sa pag may bagyo, we always arrive at the point where humihingi na talaga ng cash.
Yes, Mr.
Kasi they have their own needs. There's a baby, they have to buy baby food, they have iba-iba. So hindi na kaya dun sa food pack. So how are
Mr. President, that will commence by next week.
Next week, yeah. That's
Ngayon
about
kasi nandun
right.
pa sila sa family food pack request. And then we're starting to get na the cash payout schedules for next week in the affected area. So that's also taken care of, Mr. President.
Kayo na lang ang magbigay sa amin kung ano yung requirement. Kasi it's going to be IX already. It's going to be assistance na cash na.
Opo.
Oo.
Thank you
Kasi yun na nga, after a while, may pangangailangan sila na specific dun sa pamilya nila.
Yes.
So, hindi na nakukuha sa just the food pack. Yeah. All right.
In the department.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I know. Because we just did we had to a supplementary budget for DSWD because September pa lang ubos na tayo eh. August natin na gano'n. Well, whatever it is, it's the weather. The people are having a tough time and nabibiktima. So there's nothing else we have to do. We just have to provide them that assistance. Is the water? What is the condition? Baha pa ba? Yung mga ibang lugar, mga Morong, mga Hindi
Wala na po, bumaba na po.
Nawala na yung tubig.
Just like our briefing nung sa San
Oo
Mateo,
nga eh.
mabilis tumaas, mabilis bumaba. Mabilis lang umandar din.
Pagka mabilis bumaba, ibig sabihin marami lang talaga yung tubig. There's just so
Small
much
arteries.
water. Kasi may dinadaanan. Buti naman kung sasabihin na nakaharang, hindi makalabas yung tubig. Hindi naman eh. Nakakalabas ka agad yung tubig, pero yung dinadaanan niya napupuno. Kasi sa dami ng tubig. That's really what's happening there. Everyone complains about the weather, but nobody ever does anything about it. There's nothing we can do. It's the weather. All right. Okay. So I think DSWD is set up. LGU, the LGUs are already are aware of all of the things that we are doing. Is there anything else that we haven't covered specifically for the province of Rizal?
Mr. President, since Antipolo is the one that's hardest hit for this storm, may I ask my older brother, Mayor June, to please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ate. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone. Mr. President, last night I happened to watch the news on TV Patrol, and Yusek David was interviewed, and we're very thankful after hearing what DNR has in store, and maybe DPWH also, to address the possible solutions to the issue at hand, particularly flooding. I'd like to also report that we have similar interventions, engineering and otherwise. But to be honest, Mr. President, bulag po kami dito sa LGU. We know it's a confluence of a lot of factors that contribute to flooding, as mentioned earlier. But like Yusek David mentioned last night, because right now there's outrage from the public at sinisisi po yung mining activities. And according to Yusek David, it's unfair to blame the mining sector because 1% of Marikina Watershed, only 1% is being mined. So it would be, to quote Yusek David, it would be foolish to blame mining for the flooding. But just the same, it contributes, whether it's 2% based on the MGB report in 2009. The fact remains, sa dami po ng rason, hindi po namin alam which contributes the most. Is it mining? Is it urbanization? Is it deforestation? Is it siltation? Is it bad land use planning or land use implementation? So right now, we are in the process of commissioning UP Diliman to conduct a study. But you would be saving us a lot of money if the national government has a study identifying which contributes the most to flooding. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes. That's not a simple question. But when I flew yesterday, the other day, nakitang-kita ko yung mga mining operation. Hindi naman nag-landslide eh. Akala ko, sabi ko ito, kasi wala nang kahoy. Sabi ko, ito, baka dito, baka dito. It was lupa eh. Ang nakikita ko, tapos may mga truck. There were like about 5 of them that we flew over. And I looked downstream from them. Mukha naman, quarrying, mostly quarrying ang ginagawa nila. Hindi naman nata naapektuhan. So I don't know if that's because I guess when you look around, the only areas with bare soil are the landslide and the mining areas. So sinasabi siguro kaya gumuho yan dahil I don't know. We'll really have to have a look at it. But The one that was featured in the news, yung nag-landslide, wala namang malapit na mina dun eh. So I think it is just because these are new conditions. Because marami kong nakita na flood control na nasira. That's the first slides that you showed, flood control na nawasa. Doon ko nung una naisip, ang lakas ng tubig, ang bigat ng tubig. Pati yung flood control, sinira niya eh. So, it's just, we have to do the upstream management, water management. Because what the conclusions that we have come to is that hindi mo mapipigilan na mag-populate ang NCR. Wala kang magagawa. Pati may mga problema nga, yung nagtatapon ng basura, yun na nga, what we mentioned earlier, natatabunan yung mga spillway, all of these things. So, we can of course improve that, but in the end, it will happen again because like I said, mabilis naman bumaba eh. Ibig sabihin, pinagdadaanan yung tubig, pero masyadong marami yung tubig. So, ang iniisip namin, yung impounding sa upstream. Huwag mo nang pababain yung tubig. Kunin mo na habang malayo pa, habang nasa taas pa. Gamitin mo yan pag tag-araw. Meron kang pang irrigation, meron kang pang lagyan mo pa ng solar kung gusto mo. All of these things are available. So that's what we are trying to do now, is to try and control the water that goes into the city. And that will help us in the water management in general. And when I talk about water management, what we are talking about is already water for household use, water for irrigation, agricultural irrigation, water for industrial use, and all of the other possibilities, as I said, even for energy, kung may hydro possibility, may solar possibility, all of these things, we put it out, nilalagyan pa natin ng isda para pwedeng gamitin as a fish pond. So, all of these things are what we are trying to put together now. But it is a big project and yung tubig hindi nangingilala ng boundary. Kaya it has to be not just one province, not just one region. Kung hindi yung buong dito, kung pag-uusapan mo ang NCR, buong Luzon, kailangan mong tignan. And the upstream areas, where you can dig big impounding projects, so that the water that was supposed to go into the city will no longer do that, and we can control when there's water supply needed. Magbibitaw tayo ng tubig. Pag tag-araw, di ba? Magano tayo ng tubig. So that is now our strategy for the long term. But in the short term, we just have to adjust. We will try to do our best in terms of controlling the levels of water that come in using all of these other strategies with dams, with small dams, with impounding areas, but they all have to follow a overall plan, because it's understandable that if you are in the province and you say dito tayo maglagay ng flood control, dahil laging nababaha dito. Sometimes the situation is that hindi naman dyan ang problema, yung problema dito. Kaya kailangan doon natin ilagay yung flood control. So that's why we have to coordinate very closely with the LGUs. On the same time, the LGUs, the locals, the local farmers, the local fishermen, they know better than anybody the detailed evolution of where dumadaan yung tubig dati, ngayon nalipat na rito, ganun kataas, etc., etc. So that coordination has to be very close, because like I said, there's nothing like local information. And, farmers and fishermen, they have an intimate knowledge of the natural phenomena. All right. Okay. Is there anything else? Oh, Kong Jack. Ay, okay na.
Mr. President, first of all, I'd like to thank you and the department. Kami po naman sa lower area po ng Rizal, what has been within our control is to really shorten the recovery time and to mitigate the economic losses. No, with your help, we've been able to bring down the flooding from periods of days to now some areas only hours. Now, there's an area po of clarification that we would like to seek because there is one program po, which is one of the floodgates along Cainta River, na because of the pandemic, na kailangan po na ibalik po yung pondo para doon because there was a moratorium during the pandemic on the relocation. Kasi to be able to construct for the floodgates and as well as the pumping station, there were areas that had to be relocated. And because po of the moratorium, hindi po natuloy yun. Nabalik po yung pondo. So we just like to seek po clarification on that policy. If it is all right again to be able to, of course, humanely and legally relocate these people para po matuloy yung mga programang yan.
Are you aware of this proposed na hindi na natamaan ng moratorium?
I just talked to the good congressman earlier, Mr. President, and I think we can do it again and revive the facility.
Yes.
Yes,
All
Mr.
right.
President.
And ituloy na natin yan.
We'd also like to thank you po because the road dike, which is actually a C6 radial, is already ongoing, and that is GAA funded, and that naman protects the coastal towns of Taytay all the way, will protect Taytay up to Binangonan from storm surges for exiting typhoons in the future. So again, Mr. President, we have been, ang nagawang strategy po namin, because we started our flood mitigation program as early as 2001. Pero nung tumama po yung undoy sa amin, the strategy we took was to start from down going up. No, we started our drainage as close to sea level as possible, creeping upwards. Kasi po, knowingly, kung nag-umpisa sa taas, kakalat lang sa baba. And we've been successful there. These are some of the last few pieces na lang po as far as the mitigation is concerned. And then we're hoping, and actually we're pretty sure that by 2028, tapos na po lahat ito.
As soon as we can. We don't. This is not going to change anytime soon. For the better. Hindi na. The term new normal is absolutely correct because it's not. We're not going back to the weather patterns of 10 years ago. It's just not going to happen, and that's why we have to be aware of what's going on in the forecasting, the meteorology that we are looking for. Despite the fact that, as I said, it's becoming more difficult. Okay, are there any other matters relevant to this issue that we have to discuss? All right. Okay. So DSWD, you carry on doing. You know what to do. You have. Unfortunately, we are unfortunately all too familiar with this situation. The DILG, okay. The LGUs. You please continue the coordination between the national agencies and the LGUs with DNR, with Public Works, para yung ating ginagawa, if there are specific concerns that we can address them as quickly as possible. Because if there are specific concerns, it usually means that there is an area or there is a group of people or a barangay or two barangays that have not received any assistance at all. So we will have to do something special for them. Do we still have those barangays that hanggang ngayon di pa natin naabot? Wala na, lahat na napasok na natin. Okay, so that's one less concern for us. Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you, Go.